Okay, so I work in the history department. I do history of sports. I teach kind of history of sports. I started working on Mexican communities that organized leagues in the cities of Chicago and Detroit in the 20th century, and that took me to the history of sports in the United States, and then to the history of different cultural manifestations by people of Mexican descent in the United States. In addition, I also do photography and documentary filmmaking, and many of the questions that have been posed here in terms of representation, in terms of the ethical responsibility of the person that is in charge of a particular project, and in terms of how to either represent or facilitate a process of empowerment on the so-called subjects that we're dealing with, are always present in the documentary filmmaking world, and also in the world of history. These are questions that have to do with humanities in general, not only with digital humanities. And what we need to say here is that digital humanities, to some extent, do not reflect these ethical questions because we embrace them without really analyzing what's going on. And we need to be very careful in terms of what is it that we want to do, how we want to do it, and what are or should be the politics of representation. So in my opinion, digital humanities should be, number one, transparent. Number two, they should be public. And number three, they should be collaborative. That is, we should not put anybody in charge of representing any other group. We should be in the business as digital humanities scholars of engaging in collaborative projects with different entities, with different groups, with different agencies, in order to empower them and facilitate the access that these groups should have to the world of digital humanities. And that perspective comes also from the world of filmmaking, right? When you do a documentary filmmaking, you cannot do stuff on somebody. You have to do your project with the subject. You have to collaborate with the subject, and you have to take into account how they want to participate, what type of agency they are going to be engaged in, and how they are going to be empowered or not with the manifestation of this particular project. So I've done documentary filmmaking with on youth and homophobia, for instance, on transgender individuals, on people that are incarcerated in the state of Michigan. Now I'm working with students, Chicano Latino students that are facing challenges towards graduation in Michigan State University, and my principles are always the same. I have to collaborate with them. I have to allow these individuals to participate in their own terms. I have to consult with them, and I have to do my project not on them, but with them. And to me, that's like a key difference on how projects on digital humanities should be executed, right? They have to be collaborative, they have to be public, they have to be transparent, because otherwise we get into the business of representing, reproducing colonial knowledges, reproducing patriarchal structures, reproducing racial hierarchies, and that is not the business of digital humanities. So I have one project that I organized a few years ago about the history of sports at Michigan State University. I did this with my students. Many of them were student athletes, and what we did is that we went to the archives, the historical archives at Michigan State University, and we identified different materials that they would use for their research projects, and then these visual materials would be published or would be posted in these digital archive. So if you have, for instance, here let's say Title IX, right? We have information about how female athletes at Michigan State responded to the Title IX era, and to the challenges by which they were facing gender discrimination as athletes by the institutional framework or by the university at large. So we have here information about the basketball team. We have information about the complaint that Michigan State basketball players engage in against the administration for not complying with Title IX policies. And we have different information that allows the student athletes in my class to identify different subjects, to work in these different subjects, and to contribute with the publication or the visibility of these different projects in terms of the different contributions of student athletes to this type of historical developments that happen not only at Michigan State, but in many other instances. So we have this project, this digital humanities project ongoing for a few years. We work with students, and then I move on to talk about the history of the Day of the Dead. Let me show you. The history of the Day of the Dead in the United States and in Mexico, and different ways in which I could engage, or we could engage with the people that participate in this celebration on regular basis. Oops. I don't know why this show is.
Give it a quick try in a different browser. Don't let this fall. Here, let me get it.
Okay, so I'll keep talking. So there are many different ways in which the history of in which the Day of the Dead is celebrated in the United States, and there is a significant overlap with American traditions. Right? You have people celebrating the Day of the Day in the United States, going to a Halloween party and trying to get dressed as Frida Kahlo, right? And that is not the type of information that I was very interested in putting out in the website. So what we came up with is a website in which we could trace the history of Day of the Dead from its origins in ancient Mexico as an agricultural festivity, and then to analyze the different transformations of the Day of the Dead all the way up to the ways in which it is celebrated in the United States by Chicano communities. And we included, posts. For instance, Sergei Eisenstein has a story of the Day of the Dead when he went to Mexico in the 1920s. The IMSS designers also have a little clip on that. And what we wanted to do with this website was to find ways in which we could collaborate with, number one, the artists that participate in the Day of the Day celebration in the United States, and number two, the rural and indigenous communities that celebrate the Day of the Dead in Mexico, and how we could use this website to enhance, number one, their access to digital humanities, and number two, their social visibility so that they could construct or create an image in their own terms. So we contact people from the community of Huaquechula in Puebla, Mexico, and we came up with a collaborative project in which we're going to use this portal to document and to portray the history of the celebration in Huaquechula, Mexico, and at the same time, we're going to film a documentary piece on how the Day of the Day is celebrated in Huaquechula. But we're doing this with the community. That is, they are active participants. They have, I have 30 seconds, okay. They are active participants. We have different clips. You can watch them, later on. They are very short. They are nice. They are active participants. They have their own type of agenda in terms of what is it that they want to be included in the film, how they are going to participate in the film, and how we're going to collaborate together to portray or to depict this traditional celebration in the rural indigenous town of Huacachula and Puebla. So this is the type of digital humanities that we're trying to engage in. Of course, there are many challenges, one of which is funding, right? Because every time that you want to do something with people, you run into the problem of who's going to pay for that. If you want to do something for an institution, like Sports Site on the history of Spartan athletics, that is not a problem. But if you want to do something that is going to empower communities, that is going to give visibility to people that are traditionally on the other side of the light, then you're going to have a number of challenges and difficulties that have to be addressed or have to be analyzed in detail. And I appreciate your opportunity the opportunity that you gave me to present this project. This is not concluded. We are in the process of working with this community, but that's how we want to do it.